Honored guests, please return to the ballroom. We're about to begin the next session immediately. Honored guests, we're about to begin our next session. The title of the session is The Integration Agenda, a Roadmap Towards SDGs. I would like to request on the stage Ms. Van Nguyen, Resident Representative, UNDP Bangladesh, Dr. Debapriya Bhattacharya, Distinguished Fellow, Center for Policy Dialogue Bangladesh, Dr. Pramod Jashal, Research Director, Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement, Dr. Asif Iqbal Siddiqui, Lead Academic, Curtin University, Australia, Aizaz Ahmed Chaudhry, former Foreign Secretary and Ambassador of Pakistan, and Dr. Saima Haq Bedisha, Professor of Economics, University of Dhaka, Bangladesh. The moderator of this session may begin when she is ready. We are about to begin the session. Please wait for the photo session after the photos will be taken after the session, please. The moderator may begin when she is ready.
Good morning, everyone. So very warm welcome to the first plenary session, which is about the integration agenda, a roadmap to SDGs. We all know that when we are talking about regional integration can play a very crucial role when we are talking about growth and development prospects. And when we are talking about the Bay of Bengal region, then definitely there are a lot of untapped opportunities and which can help us to attain the SDGs. Of course, there are challenges as well. So we will like to hear about the challenges, the opportunities, and all of the issues from the experience of very honorable and distinguished panelists of ours. So today we have with us 5 very distinguished panelists. We have with us Ms. Van Nguyen, Deputy Resident Representative, UNDP. Dr. Debapriya Bhattacharya, Distinguished Fellow, CPD. Dr. Pramod Jaiswal, who is the Research Director, Nepal Institute of International Cooperation and Engagement. We have Dr. Asif Iqbal Siddiqui, Lead Academic, Curtin University, Australia. And of course, we have with us Mr. Aijaz Ahmed Chowdhury, former Foreign Secretary, Pakistan. Now, I think that we have so many exciting panelists with us. I don't want to bore you with a lot of comments or question or introduction. And for the introduction, maybe I will probably go first to our very own Dr. Debapriya to set the tone. And so, to you, Dr. Debapriya, I have the question that what challenges that you see when we are talking about having regional integration to foster the SDGs and to attain the SDGs? Where are the untapped opportunities and why or how strong is the geopolitics here? So over to you, Doctor. Yes. So just to interrupt, I want to humbly say that it will be a great pleasure for us and it will be easy for us to manage the time if we can spend like 8 or 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Professor Vidisha. Let me first start by thanking the organizers for inviting me to this session. It's a unique opportunity to meet friends across the region over here. So on behalf of the the citizens of Dhaka, I would like to welcome those friends who have traveled far and wide to come to Dhaka and join this conference. So, and I can see it has already got a very good start. Thank you very much, Vidisha, for that question. Since the session is about integration and SDG, I just wanted to mention that as everybody would agree, that we are meeting at a very critical time. The critical time, that is the challenge to start with, because we have an interrupted post-COVID recovery. We are approaching a global recession, and we do have a number of violent incidents going around the world, including in Ukraine. Along with that, we see the lots of projections about the imminent 2 crises. One is the fuel crisis, energy crisis, and the other is the food insecurity. All these things are all there. The question is that in order to address these issues, the new issues, and also some of them are inherited structural issues, what can be done? So the world is really looking for new processes, new initiatives, new innovations in this regard. So the Bay of Bengal Conference is, for that matter, whether it can inspire some of those new initiatives or not to meet those challenges is the real question. Now, the session has been mentions that whether we can move towards SDGs as an agenda for that kind of solutions in that way. I fully agree with that. I make the proposition that SDGs can be a very good framing exercise in order to deal with these challenges in a substantive way, and also at a national level, if not at a granular level, at specific communities who are being left behind. So why the SDG will be a good one to deal with this emerging challenges? To start with, I think this, as you all know, in 2015 when we signed up the SDGs, but 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. It is an universal document. It has been signed by all the countries in the world, and from that matter, it has that overall ownership when we want to use that particular framework. The SDG framework is also very convenient because it also provides some means of implementation. So one of the major means of implementation, and I will stop on that issue a bit later, is the regional cooperation, sub-regional cooperation, and also mega-regional cooperation. And Bay of Bengal issue is precisely a mega-regional cooperation construct in certain ways. The other issue which the SDG is so convenient for us and important, because the region we are talking about suffers from poverty, malnutrition, hunger, and there are traditionally left behind people in these countries. So when we talk about that development, and we are talking about development to be defined by the least developed communities or individuals in this group of countries. So the SDGs provide us not only the aggregate development prospect, but also at a disaggregated level, looking at those left behind. And now with the COVID on, we talk about those who have been pushed behind, the new middle class, lower middle class who have been pushed behind. That is another of those new challenges which we are dealing with. So this is how the framework is out there, over there. The issue over here, if you take a much more specific look at the SDGs, and of course the first and foremost challenge, as I mentioned, is of course hunger, poverty, malnutrition, and along with that we are seeing a looming food insecurity. This is where I think one will have to really concentrate. The second area of concentration is all about, if you go around these countries, and if you look at their future, and if you look at the looming fourth industrial revolution, then we are talking about quality education, we are talking about public health services, we are talking about social protection. This is what we are talking about. But all these things can only happen. I think the third area is that to have employment, gainful employment, particularly the youth population, who are more than 1/3 of the population of this region. And with that employment will come in the issue of infrastructure development, connectivity, which we are all arguing for. Along with that will come innovation and also supply of affordable and renewable energy, the green energy issues. Let me come towards the end, why SDG is the good framing and construct for this dealing with the Bay of Bengal issues. The important part of it is that it also looks at the issue of human rights, rule of law, institutions. And all these countries in this region possibly will be better serviced if we could have improved the rule of law and the human rights issues, and also the role of the state making it more accountable in our respective countries. Last but not the least, as I have mentioned, it talks about partnership. And that brings me over here now to my other concluding part of the discussion. The partnership, what we are talking about here, is usually understood between the North and the South. But SDGs really allows for, or rather promotes, the South-South cooperation issue. So Bay of Bengal, what we are talking about, is essentially the South-South cooperation to be taken at a new height with these middle powers, the regional powers, and also those who have been left behind in the regional, in the overall global context over there. So what are the areas we are talking about if that be the case? I have mentioned some of the SDGs, but let me focus a bit more on specific areas. One particular area at this post-COVID, what we are seeing is essentially we need some regional public goods. I look at Bay of Bengal cooperation for generating the regional public goods, which will complement the generation of the global public goods in terms of peace, security, and stability. So that is out there. So what is the foremost global public goods I look at this moment? I think the obvious answer would be the connectivity. And connectivity is both hard, soft, and frugal in that way. So we are talking about multimodal transport system. We are talking about internet connectivity, digital connectivity over there. And as an economist, I will fail in my duty if I don't say financial connectivity, trade, investment, and etc. So those connectivity issues are there, very much there. The other issue, which is of course is always everybody's in mind, and drawing on the SDGs, is life on land, but more importantly, life underwater. So the blue economy issue is, of course, is on the frontier in this case. So the Bay of Bengal initiative, along with the connectivity, will definitely address the issue of blue economy and a very untapped area of resources over there. But let me conclude by saying that in the recent past, what we have seen, that beyond this traditional area of generating regional public goods, the area which has come to the fore is that the issue of public health, particularly vaccines. The COVID has shown that this Bay of Bengal region can be both a producer, India in particular, China out there, as producer of vaccines, and also as a good cooperative relationship in receiving these vaccines in a certain ways and their follow-up. This is a totally new area which has opened up, through this misfortune which the world is facing. Let me conclude by saying, Bay of Bengal in area, when we talk about processes, structures, and institutions, is not deprived of those structures, institutions over there. We have the United Nations, have it ESCAP, the Economic Commission for Asia Pacific region. We have BIMSTEC. We have whatever its status is, the Comoros SARC. We do have BCIM, the Bangladesh, China, India, and Myanmar issues, and there are many other. And BIMSTEC is, of course, the one over there. The issue is, how will really one will make a synergy out of this multitude of institutional structure? Shall we go for that or not? But in order to do that, I think the bottom line is there are a number of regional conflictual situations. There are border issues. There are border issues both in terms of land and also maritime border issues. So the trust building will be critical in this area. So the trust building process has to be critical and led by the political process. That is much beyond the technical expertise for people like us in that way. So we look forward to that kind of a blending where the political process will come together with the technical processes done by many of us over here. And I'm pretty sure this conference, with your presence, will contribute towards that. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much. I think you owe a special thanks to finish it within time frame. You have already set the tone. So
I didn't have much to say.
No, but I think it's important to set the tone for this session. So now I was just thinking that when Dr. Debapriya was talking about one of the key areas, key potential areas of SDG is related to blue economy. So I was thinking I would like to hear from Ms. Van Nguyen about what do you think about the potentials of expanding or fostering regional cooperation, especially when we think the issues related to blue economy and how that can help the countries to the Bay of Bengal region to attain the SDGs. So over to you.
Thank you so much. And first, I would like to say very good morning to all. And when I was asked to step in here, I was really overwhelmed with the panel, the very distinguished panel members. So I'm very honored to be here to share some observations about the topic of today's session. So my name is Van and I'm from Vietnam and I work for the United Nations Development Program. So I came to Bangladesh 3 years ago. I am a person who kind of like a been here, done that person, so I travel a lot. So when I look at Bangladesh, I read about Bangladesh as the longest coastal line, beaches. So I was very excited to come and thinking that I would have lots of things to explore and discover. So the next thing I realized that, wow, it's a very, very limited facilities that can capitalize on what the country has. And then that brings me to the point that the previous session, when the former president of Serbia was talking about Bangladesh has a lot of potential, which I fully subscribe to. And I think that in the blue economy, this statement is so holds true. There's so much potential for Bangladesh and for country in the region, or the country in the Bay of Bengal, to capitalize on. So some of you may know that this year marks 10 years the United Nations used the term blue economy. It was first used in 2012 in Rio de Janeiro. That is when the first time people heard about this. And you may also know that the current global blue economy is around 2.5 trillion annually. And if we look at the ocean economy as an example, it is said to reach 3 trillion by 2030. So you see the number is such huge, and the employment related to ocean-based industry could reach to, or set to double around 40 million jobs by 2030. That's the potential. And thinking about the population, the size of that vision, it says a lot. So, however, we know that the potential still remains as a potential. So what can we do? If we look around, let's look at my own country, Vietnam. Blue economy represents 47% of the GDP, 47, nearly half. How much is Bangladesh in 2015? I don't have the number, updated number, 2015. Bangladesh is 3%. India, 4%. So that is, and that you wonder, that what can we do to really improve and increase? Now, in the, and if you think about, for example, around Mauritius or Seychelles, Seychelles, the country is so small, Mauritius, the country is so small, but the tourism is so big, and that is and tourism-based, ocean-based tourism. So it is just, I think I don't have to say it more, to say that how important it is for us, for the region, to really focus on and find solutions, addressing challenges so that the blue economy can really benefit the people, support the countries in the region to achieve the SDGs. Yeah? So now, if we think, I think that the dialogue today is a very important, milestone that starts the process of conversation, of communication, of exchange of ideas, of exploring opportunities for collaboration. Now, you asked me about what exactly blue economy contributes to the achievement of the SDGs. As blue economy falls into the SDG 14, which is life under, all those life under the water and all those, ocean and related to water. Anything and everything related to water, that is a blue economy. So, if we do well with blue economy SDG 14, you will be able to achieve, meaning that you will be able to protect the ocean. You will be able to have people with jobs. Then you lead people out of poverty, SDG 1. You empower the women who have the job, who can take care of the family, who have money to send children to school, SDG 4. Women empowerment, SDG 5, And if we protect the environment, it means that you have to protect all the litter coming from the land base. It is SDG 12, responsible consumption. We don't throw plastic into the ocean. So I just give some example to see that how SDGs are interrelated, interconnected. We address one SDG, it doesn't only serve achieving that SDG. It actually serves the whole SDG 17. And I want to conclude, I want to pick up what Dave was mentioning, I really like his intervention because he was always able to look, beyond and at the bigger picture. So the connectivity, yes. The digital connectivity, yes. So if I may add, I would say that when we are supporting the countries in the region to capitalize on the blue economy, we have to take into account that there will be people who are left behind. Therefore, we need to reach those people first. So making sure that the fundamental guiding principle of Agenda 2030, Sustainable Development Goals, to leave no one behind. That's one point. Second is that Bangladesh is so much advanced compared to others in terms of digitization, digital connectivity, but then it also creates, and COVID was really telling us, the digital divide. So what can we do? So that I leave the question for you to answer. I am not here to, but I just want to share with you my perspective and representing UNDP. We, UNDP, together with the United Nations family, very much would like to continue supporting and being with you in this journey. Thank you so much for giving me the floor. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think blue economy is really an area which is also very much connected to all of the sustainable development goals that we are talking about. Now, Dr. Asif Iqbal, we know that you have worked quite a lot on environmental economics and environmental issues, carbon trade and all of these issues. So you have vast experience in terms of all of the issues related to sustainable development. So from you, we would like to hear that what particularly you think about combating the climate change challenges that we have, what we can do in terms of through regional cooperation, how we can combat the challenges of climate change from your experience. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for having me here. And thank you for this question. And as she just mentioned, that every SDG is very interrelated. If you want to address one, you have to address all. And sustainability's main characteristics is it's comprehensive, it's holistic. You can't leave one aspect behind without, while you want to address something else. Climate change is a generational challenge that we have been facing. 20, 25 years ago, when Kyoto Protocol was signed, there was people sitting in, and most people were actually in the platform of climate denial at that point. Now it's no longer the case. Nobody really denies about climate change. The impacts are so visible, whether in terms of random weather events, and most importantly, the investors and financial institutions around the world over the last 10 years have been taking climate change very seriously, that every bank is actually looking at, financial institutions, asset management companies are looking at whether climate risk is addressed in their investment. And that's making climate change a lot more important for businesses, and that's creating a new climate for businesses. So climate change is definitely not one of the isolated issues. It touches on every aspect of SDGs, starting from poverty, hunger, education, gender, and all the way to goal 15. And I always say goal 16 and 17 are always about implementation. 16 is mostly around building the institution, and building institution is not just government or governance. It's about involving everybody, citizens, non-government organizations, businesses, corporations, everyone bringing on board and having an institutional framework to address this huge challenge of climate. And this goal 17 is about collaboration. That's why you are here, because the collaboration is so important. Now, Sustainable Development Goals, 17 goals are global goals. They're not like MDGs, which is mostly for developing countries, where developed countries would come and help them to achieve development challenges. But Sustainable Development Goals are for everyone. It's universal. So we always have common platform for every country to talk about it. So in South Asia, the climate is a very important issue. And the poverty and the development is a very important issue. And we have lots of social fault lines, a lot of political fault lines in South Asia. Although in terms of stages of development, South Asian countries are more uniform compared to even Southeast Asia. If you look at ASEAN, Myanmar and Singapore are probably in a very different trajectory of the growth and development, but they are cooperating. And they are in the same platform to cooperate and address climate and sustainability, corporate sustainability and ESG issues, where in South Asia, we are not really having that level of cooperation yet because of many social and political fault lines. But we have a common enemy to combat. The common enemy is poverty. The common enemy is inequality. Inequality is a very important indicator of development. If you look at the developed countries, you don't have to look at the data. The Scandinavian countries, European countries, the income distribution is a lot more equitable compared to any underdeveloped country. So you have less inequality, meaning your country is more developed. So inequalities is something which is very important that we need to look at, and that has a lot of implications on the climate change. So I will not really focus only on the environmental aspect of the climate change because Bangladesh is one of the most climate vulnerable country. We are facing plenty of challenges to the southern part of the country, and it's not just Bangladesh. This whole coastal line is covering India and is going to Myanmar and all over the Maldives, Sri Lanka, all the South Asian, many other South Asian countries are impacted by various aspects of the climate change. And carbon management is definitely one of the most important global issue. It has been growing big, especially in terms of carbon credit, carbon sink, carbon trading. Europe has created a more formal market. Other areas of the world are trying to create this market. Probably in South Asia, we are not ready institutionally to implement what Europe is doing, what Southeast Asia has been trying to do. But what we should focus more on is the poverty development. Urbanization is one of the definitely important factor, which is goal 11, and of course, working conditions of workers, goal 8, the decent work. So there is many other areas which everything is related to one way or the other related to climate change, and we need to look at. Since this session is mostly about regional integration and its implication on sustainable development goals, so I'm just trying to keep my perspective more toward that, and rather than just putting on the environmental aspect. Of course, environmental aspect is very important, but we have recognized in Art Summit in 1992, 5 years after the Brundtland Commission report, which actually laid down the foundation for sustainable development, that sustainable development has to be human-centered. It's not about environment, it's not about economy, it's about the people. It's about the welfare of the people. So we must utilize the economic development and environmental conservation, preservation, and sustainable usage for the human development. So that's where I would like to really emphasize when we talk about sustainable development, we must look at the human welfare and social aspects more carefully, and that's why we need to look after the environmental aspect. We are definitely walking a dangerous path. The global warming has already escalating. We are nowhere near achieving net zero by 2050, although we are trying. We have it in the agenda, countries are trying, but I personally do not think we'll be able to achieve that by 2050, but definitely things are moving. And COVID-19 created a lot of new challenges and also new opportunities over the last 2 years. One of the biggest challenges and the development challenges is created that all over the world, because of the restrictions, it has destroyed many micro nodes of the supply chain. And that created a supply side inflation, which will be very difficult for world to handle at this point. Of course, we have to find a way to face it, but this is not going to go away anywhere. So inflation is, second thing is that energy security is changing, the energy mix is changing globally, and it's mostly moving away from fossil fuel. Also, it's very much related to climate change. It's very important for climate change too, but is Bangladesh ready, or any other countries are really ready for creating a new energy mix to fuel its industrialization process? So this is second biggest sustainability challenge and the climate challenge I'm looking at. And the third one is definitely climate change is having a plenty of other risks for various level of investments we have around the world, because we are living in a very connected world, and our supply chains are distributed, and various nodes of supply chain is being challenged by climate, and we have to be really very vigilant about how it is impacting us. So it's a very complex issue, and there is no conclusion to it, so I'm not trying to conclude anything. It's just a food for thought, and we can definitely continue the conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think we have been talking about regional cooperation in different ways. So now I would like to go to Dr. Pramod Jaiswal. We know that you have worked quite a lot on South Asia and China policies, and you have worked quite a lot on Belt and Road Initiative as well. So from your experience, what you can share about the potentials and the challenges and the ways to combat the challenges that we have in case of fostering regional integration and to attain the SDGs. So over to you.
Thank you, Chair. At the outset, I think I must thank my friend Jilur for this invitation at this wonderful event. Quite impressive gathering and well organized. He has also brought many well-known scholars whom I have met since decades, but not get the opportunity to meet due to COVID. So I'm really, it's an opportunity, it's a privilege. I have not met Jilur, it's his birthday, so I think let me wish him from here on his birthday. Coming back to the topic on integration of South Asia, I think we all know that South Asia is less integrated than it was in 1950s, before India's independence or independence of sub-region. We used to have railway from Nepal to India. We all know that there was railway connectivity from India to present Pakistan or Bangladesh. So with time, when the world was integrating, South Asia was disintegrating. When the European Union was imagining visa-free regime, we are working on hard visa regimes. So that is one. The reasons and the challenges previous speaker has been talking and will be talking. Second is that we all know that there is need for integration. We have realized that, but the implementation part is not as per the realization. So I think that is where we need to work on. Let me come to BBIN. We all know that BBIN has huge potential. Bhutan and Nepal has huge potential in terms of electricity. India and Bangladesh, current Bangladesh, are the largest polluter in the region. Europe is the consumer. So in this situation, I think we can harness huge potential of hydropower that lies between Nepal and Bangladesh. Let me put the case of Nepal. Nepal has the capacity to produce 43,000 megawatt, and till now we have not even harnessed 10%. We are not producing even 4,000 megawatt of electricity. It's less than 3,000. And we all know that India and Bangladesh are the largest consumer. They need clean energy. We have to meet COP targets. So I think this is where the countries can come together, but there's not such initiatives. It's in the process now. In last 5 months, Nepal have sold 8 billion Nepali rupees of electricity to India. We are negotiating and we are trying to sort out with Bangladesh. Bangladesh is interested to invest, they are interested to construct transmission line or even use the Indian grid for that. So I think there is need for a kind of goodwill, and there is a need for greater push for those kind of projects that is required. I think private sector plays an important role because we know the government is too big and they have complications and they are slow. So if you can bring the private sectors on all these three countries, I think that can play a very important role. Briefly also talking about like the question that was raised, like China. I think China has provided alternative to countries in the region. When India is rising, when the world is changing, the aspiration of a small country like Nepal, Bangladesh or Sri Lanka is changing. Their aspirations are growing. with the rise of India, the dreams of all these countries are increasing. But at times, the traditional partners like India or the others who are in the region are not able to fulfill those aspirations, desires, and need. And then comes China. China comes as an alternative. Yes, there are challenges which we'll be talking about, but China has provided opportunities or alternatives or a tool to negotiate with the traditional partners. Now, let me look at how China has emerged in this region. We all know that when any country emerges as a power, they create a space. United States is in every room of every world. You know, it's like it's everyone's neighbor. It's US is Bangladesh's neighbor, it's Nepal's neighbor, it's everyone's neighbor. China is making itself the world's neighbor. Second, when the traditional partners, when they fail to meet aspirations, or where they have flawed policies, or where there is lack of delivery, China creates a space. When the world was not going to Africa, China moved there, and then every country is going there. When no one was interested in Hambantota, China moved there. India was asked to create Hambantota, but India was not interested. There is a failure, there is a problem with the project, that is a different story. But in China came as an alternative. So that is how the small neighbors are coming as an alternative in the region. And this has made the traditional partners, India in the region, very serious. If you look at Nepal's case, all the pending projects, the project that was delayed by years and decades, there is rapid progress. And the credit goes to China. If China was not there, there would not have been BBB, Build Back Better World, Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. These are all the product of rise of China. So I think rise of China is an opportunity for the region. And I think we should be not shy to say that. The reason is that who are the greatest partner of China? And the opponents, they are same. US, Europe, Japan, India, Korea, they are the largest trading partner and they have the conflicting relations. They don't enjoy good relations. So there is no side in developing relations with China for Bangladesh, for Nepal, for Sri Lanka, because they enjoy better relations than what all those traditional partners like US, Japan, India, or Australia are enjoying. So I think we should leverage that rise of China and benefit for the region. So, and then when I'm talking about aspirations and desire, what are those desires? What does the region desire for? The region desire for connectivity, engagement, economic integration, and that is what we're talking today. So I think China is emerging as an alternative not only to South Asia but to Latin America or to Africa, and that is where I briefly want to highlight on. Now, Indo-Pacific, I think, is one of the regions. Now, that is coming as an alternative because the United States and the traditional partner had lost interest in this region. So now, maybe Indo-Pacific framework can be an alternative to BRI. Now, tomorrow, if these new initiatives offer better than BRI, obviously will not be choosing the worst one. So I think that is where. Finally, on Nepal side, I'd like to end with that we personally feel that Nepal will benefit from being part of Indo-Pacific. The government is silent on that, but I personally feel that Nepal will benefit from Indo-Pacific because, as I said, we also enjoy good relations with United States or the Indo-Pacific region and the countries in the region. Before the birth of PRC or the birth of independent India, Nepal established diplomatic relations with the United States. After after Britain, the first in 1816, we established diplomatic relations with the US in 1947. So I think we see it as an opportunity. Second, one can claim that Nepal is a landlocked country. And what is the benefit it comes from? Nepal and India has open border. And when it's open border, our border virtually, in real, it ends between India and Nepal, but virtually it goes to the Indian Ocean. Because due to open border, the security concern that is in India, due to maritime sector, is also to Nepal. If there's no border between here, I mean, anything that happens on the other side has implications on this side. So this is the situation. So I think Nepal, since we are also connected to the Indian Ocean region through BIMSTEC, there is virtual concerns. So I think in that situation, Nepal should be part of Indo-Pacific and benefit from those initiatives. Because as I said, Nepal should benefit from all kind of initiatives, be it BRI, BBI, BIMSTEC. SAARC is dying and we are worried. We want to see the revival of SAARC. Because that is one institution that has made rapid progress, and if the countries in the region can seriously think of the integration issues, the regional issues, and put them into perspective, keeping the certain bilateral issues on the sides, I think we can progress. So I think I'd like to end here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and Dr. Jaswal. Now I would like to go to our last, but definitely not the least, panelist, Mr. Ejaz Ahmed Choudhury. He has a vast experience on working in different parts of the world, and we would like to hear from you about your experiences. Especially, we started this session while hearing about the opportunities and challenges, and from you, I was thinking that probably there are, when we are talking about different issues, one issue may be different, but still there are commonalities in one issue is like the institutional challenges, the challenges of implementation of the SDGs. So from you, we would like to hear what you think that how we can combat the challenges, and to want to hear about some opportunities as well. Over to you.
Thank you. I must first thank Center for Governance Studies for inviting me to these conversations. And I also want to thank you, Dr. Saima, for inviting me to share my thoughts. Earlier in the inaugural session, we heard the former president of Serbia speak so eloquently about the uncertainty and unpredictability that has come to define today's changing world. A number of trends that we can see, multiple centers of power have emerged, and some of the major powers are relying more on unilateralism, and multilateralism we can see is on the retreat. We also see a trend that impacts South Asia more than other regions perhaps, is a major power competition between the US and China. And now we also see war returning to Europe. The cumulative effect of all that is that the whole world is reeling after the impacts of these monumental changes, especially with regard to energy crisis and commodities crisis, which will eventually lead to food insecurity. Now, how are these global changes impacting South Asia? In my view, it is impacting South Asia more than others. One, a very large segment of world's poor live in South Asia. And second, this is the least integrated region of the world. Yes, SDGs can provide one solid basis for regional integration, but in my view, you need a more comprehensive approach than just the SDGs to integrate your region. I'll identify 5 such elements. One is connectivity. Now, connectivity is happening in certain parts of the world, and Dr. Jaiswal mentioned China's BRI. Pakistan also is benefiting from one of the 6 economic corridors, Pakistan-China economic corridor. So we have a north-south connectivity. But I think in due course, we'll probably need an east-west connectivity too. And perhaps India would be also taking some kind of lead in some initiatives in that direction. The second is building economic stakes of all these countries into a common South Asian identity. I think that has not happened. Just like European Union, ASEAN, and other regions, we haven't really made a conscious effort in building economic and commercial stakes into each other. The third is the social development agenda, and that's where SDGs come in. Eradicating poverty, hunger, education, health for all, justice for all is a good solid case, but I don't think we have done much to, every country is doing a lot on its own, but not together. Institutions, you talked about institutions, SARC is one, but we have seen how SARC has remained ineffective. And the fourth is the climate change. I think I would say that climate change is even greater potent. It's partly part of the SDGs to bring all these countries together, because like Bay of Bengal countries are vulnerable to sea surges. In Pakistan and northern India, I think the Himalayan glaciers, if they melt, we will all be impacted. I think there's a greater scope for all these countries to put their minds together. And finally, on the blue economy, I think we haven't really benefited as a region from the maritime riches that are available. For instance, if Pakistan and India had been able to resolve the Serkri issue, we could have defined our maritime boundary and exploited the economic zone. So my sense is that a much bigger, broader agenda is required, SDGs included, if you want to move towards regional integration. And while the world is moving towards regionalism, I think it's about time that South Asia also does so. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rizaz. We know that we have heard about lot of challenges, lot of opportunities as well, untapped opportunities, and I'm sure that in the audience there are people who have lot of questions as well. Due to our time constraint, we will not be able to take lot of questions, but if there are 2 or 3 burning questions, then we can ask. Yeah. And if you kindly just mention your name and your affiliation, and if you have anyone else, anyone particular to answer the question, then please.
My name is Mohammed Shamsir Ali. I'm a theoretical nuclear physicist by profession. I was the founder, Vice Chancellor of Bangladesh Open University and Southeast University, and President of Bangladesh Academy of Science. I would like to make brief remarks very succinctly. This is a very good session. You have a note to this session, in this session, BBIN, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, trade, electricity trade. Excellent idea. But I think, I read somewhere in this organization has been very ineffective. I personally think it will continue to be ineffective unless there is some serious brain racking and devising of ways how to make it effective. Let me give you a very precise example. This is a very big idea, the electricity trade. I was chairman of the Bangladesh Nepal Society in the early 70s. I led a delegation to Nepal. The Prime Minister said, look, gentlemen, if you are riding in a horse here,
may I
no, I'm explaining the tip. If you don't give me a couple of minutes, then what is the use? How do I give you some inputs which may improve you? Believe you me, that I will give you some inputs which will be helpful to you. The Nepalese Prime Minister said that if one of our horsemen is riding, one of his feet is brushing against the mountains, the other is hanging in the air. The meaning is that if the hydropower, if this is such brilliant hydropower, you don't have to displace people like we did in the Kornufuli hydroelectric project. We had problems. Now, if you do that, this is not hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands of megawatts can be generated. Where is the problem? The problem is here, in the mindset. You are talking of bridges, building bridges. They are physical things. But if you first make your mindset right between these two, all these nations in the Bay of Bengal, then building bridges is just a matter of details. Mental bridges, mental connections, those are more important. Those aren't there. And the intellectual communities of these countries have to be persuaded. Otherwise, the governments cannot do. Take the example of SARC. What has it done? What has it achieved over the years? Except changing or exchanging football teams or musical teams, nothing has happened. Nothing has happened. So you have to involve the intellectual and the business communities of these people. We had in Bangladesh such intellectual activities during the 1952 language movement, during the 1969 mass upsurge movement, independence. How can we not involve our intellectuals in finding out a roadway and other people of other countries? Yes. So to put pressure on the government, otherwise, ma'am, it will continue to be
ineffective
I think it's a matter
bridges.
of
Thank
long
you very much.
discussion, so may I just request Dr. Debapriya to just
So
spend
thank you,
1
Chair.
minute.
I think you have raised a very basic point over here, and the mindset issue is very much pertinent in this case. But a person of the real world, I would say it's all about incentive structure to start with. That whether the countries those who are participating in a joint endeavor should feel equally benefited and will have their concern addressed. Take for example in BBIN, the automobile agreement which we have been trying to do. And Bangladesh has signed in, India has signed in, Nepal has signed in, but Bhutan did not agree to it. Because Bhutan has its own environmental concerns, and is not ready to also to allow overwhelming tourism in their country. They want to go for high value tourism and etc. So we will have to be respectful about those countries' concerns and have to adjust to that. On the other hand, we have seen the case of, in the transits between Bangladesh and Nepal, Bangladesh and Bhutan going through India. Partly it is because of the infrastructural issues, getting them connected through proper railway linkages, having the logistics at the cross-border changing, and putting the scanning machines and other things. But also there are also concerns about security and other issues along with that. But this is a hard process. I think this is a hard process. I would not agree that nothing is happening. I think things are happening, but we wish them to be much more faster. That is what I would say, particularly regarding BBIN. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know there are a lot of questions, but unfortunately, due to time constraint, we have to wrap up the session. Maybe you can ask the question over the lunch break. For the last 1 hour or so, we have heard about a lot of untapped opportunities, challenges, and the bottom message is like SDGs are interlinked. And because SDGs are interlinked, regional cooperation, especially for some of the SDGs, can play a very crucial role. But of course, most important thing may be to have the proper mindset and have a positive mindset to have the untapped opportunities open for us. So thank you so much for listening to us. So may I invite to the next session.
Thank you, honored guests, honored speakers. Thank you.
Now I would like to request the Executive Director of CZS, Mr. Jilur Rahman, to come in the stage with 4 ambassadors, His Excellency from Japan, Australia, UK, and USA.
Still, good morning again. As you know, the Indo-Pacific region is the fastest growing region in the world, accounting for more than 60% of global growth. The USA, UK, Japan, and Australia are key players in the Indo-Pacific and have a stake in its future success. The USA has been involved in Asia since 1945 and is still a major player today. They are one of the largest trading partners with India and Japan. The US also has a strong economic ties with many of the Bengal countries and has military bases in Japan, South Korea, and many other countries. The United Kingdom is also a major player in this region because it is an important trading partner for many of these countries. It also has military bases in Singapore and Brunei and other smaller military bases worldwide. Japan's trade with ASEAN countries has been increasing steadily over the past decade. Japan also has a strong influence on Asian economies. And Australia is an important partner for regional security and stability through its involvement in regional institutions such as AUKUS and Quad. Each nation has its own perception of the Indo-Pacific, and today we hope to take a glimpse into the geopolitical perspective of each of these nations. The official paper from Washington said, Indo-Pacific strategy of the United States stated that the USA would focus on every corner of the region, from Northeast Asia and Southeast Asia to South Asia and Oceania, including the Pacific Islands. It was also stated that the USA recognized the Indo-Pacific as the world's center of gravity. The United States stated that it would pursue 5 objectives in the Indo-Pacific: advance a free and open Indo-Pacific, build connections within and beyond the region, drive regional prosperity, foster Indo-Pacific security, build regional resilience to transitional threats. To set the overall agenda of the plenary session, I'd like to invite the US Ambassador to Bangladesh, His Excellency Peter de Haas, to elaborate a bit more on how the US perceives the ongoing developments in South Asia. Mr. Peter de Haas.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you to CGS and to you, Ziller, for creating this opportunity for us to have this conversation, and also to you, Ziller, for all of the opportunities that you create for conversations and open discussions here in Bangladesh. It's very much appreciated. We stand here today at a decisive decade, not just for the Bay of Bengal, but for the broader Indo-Pacific region and the world. The window of opportunity to deal with shared threats is closing fast. Will we end this decade knowing we have put our planet on a path to healing? Will we build more resilient healthcare systems and pandemic response mechanisms? Will we uphold and honor the fundamental principles of the UN Charter, including sovereignty and territorial integrity? Will we be able to ensure food security? The actions we take now, together as a global community, will shape whether this period is known as an age of conflict and discord or as the beginning of a more stable and prosperous future. Whatever we decide, much of that future will be written right here in the Indo-Pacific. Stretching from the Pacific coastline of the United States to the Indian Ocean, the Indo-Pacific is the most dynamic region of the world. It is home to more than half of the world's people and nearly 2/3 of the world's economy. What happens here affects the entire world. Today, I'd like to share the United States' vision for the region and describe 2 challenges we see to achieving that vision. The first is the rising competition from autocracies, and the second is looming transnational threats like climate change. Our vision is a broadly shared vision. The Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina described Bangladesh's vision for the region at the 2021 Paris Peace Forum. She said, and I quote, The Indo-Pacific region must be an area of peace and prosperity for all. Our vision, meaning Bangladesh's vision for the region, is to have a free, open, peaceful, secure, and inclusive region. The United States wholeheartedly agrees with that vision. We seek to work with Bangladesh and other partners to build an Indo-Pacific that has 5 key elements. We want a region that is free and open, interconnected, prosperous, secure, and resilient. And we share this vision with many other nations. All of us may call it something slightly different, whether it's a strategy, a vision, a tilt, or an outlook, but there is incredible overlap in the vision we share. And that is part of our collective strength, finding areas where our visions overlap and partnering to move these goals forward together. I want to say this at the beginning. Our strategy is not about forcing countries to take sides. It's about ensuring that the region is free and open so that individual countries can freely make their own choices. So let me take each of the 5 key elements in the United States strategy and vision in turn. First, we seek to advance a free and open Indo-Pacific, where goods and ideas and people flow freely across land, cyberspace, and the open seas with governance that's transparent and responsive to the people. Bangladesh has made a number of important contributions to this cause. For instance, by committing to the peaceful resolution of its land and maritime border disputes, Bangladesh has made the Bay of Bengal an example for the world to follow. Regarding transparent and responsive governance, the United States will continue to support human rights and stand in solidarity with those who seek freedom and dignity, just as we continue the critical work ensuring equity and equal treatment under law in our own home. We will work to strengthen democracy both at home and around the world, and we will not be shy about championing human rights. We do this because democratic governance not only consistently outperforms authoritarianism in protecting human dignity, but it also leads to more prosperous and resilient countries. The second element is the United States will continue to forge stronger connections within and beyond the region. We must work together as a regional community to tackle our shared challenges. This means strengthening old partnerships and forging new ones. I'm proud to share this stage today with close friends and partners from Australia, Japan, and the United Kingdom. We each have our own slightly different perspectives on the region. We each have our own different strengths, and we each have our own national interests. But I believe we have, all of us, a shared vision for the future and a firm belief that we must work together and with other nations to achieve that vision. And in this regard, I would like to congratulate Bangladesh for chairing the Indian Ocean Rim Association meeting later this week. Third, the United States will promote broad-based prosperity so that no one gets left behind in the 21st century. The United States and 13 partner countries launched negotiations for the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, or IPEF, a novel economic arrangement that reflects our collective desire to address 21st century challenges that go beyond trade and investment. The membership of IPEF reflects the economic diversity of the region, as well as the interconnectivity among partner countries that drives economic growth, job creation, and innovation. As President Biden said at the launch, IPEF is intended to be open and inclusive to others who wish to join in the future if they share the goals of IPEF and work to achieve those goals. We will continue to work on these issues and grow our economic partnership bilaterally with all nations, including Bangladesh. Fourth, the United States will bolster Indo-Pacific security. For 75 years, the United States has maintained a strong and consistent defense presence in the region and will continue to contribute to the region's stability and peace. We will seek closer security cooperation with partners to tackle challenges from violent extremism to illegal fishing and human trafficking. The United States is proud to partner with Bangladesh on these challenges and more. For instance, we co-hosted the Indo-Pacific Army's Management Seminar in September, which brought together 24 nations right here in Dhaka to share ideas, build relationships, and very importantly, to speak frankly about security challenges. A big security challenge to the region's stability is the brutal military coup in Burma and the genocide against the Rohingya. The atrocities and violence Burma's military regime continues to inflict upon its own people show no sign of ending. And yet, some countries continue to supply lethal assistance to Burma's military regime, enabling its violence and repression. For this reason, on November 8th, the U.S. Department of Treasury imposed sanctions on a key supplier of military aircraft parts to Burma's military. We urge all countries to immediately stop the sale or transfer of arms, military equipment, dual-use equipment, and technical assistance to Burma. And the United States will continue to work with allies and partners to hold Burma accountable through sanctions and international pressure. The fifth element of the U.S. strategy for this important region is to help build regional resilience to transnational threats. The United States will work to enhance partners' resilience to transnational challenges. These challenges include climate and biological threats. As we all know, the Indo-Pacific is the epicenter of the climate crisis, and this region is essential to climate solutions. Our shared responses to the climate crisis are not only a political imperative, but also an economic opportunity. Through the U.S. Agency for International Development, we have offered our response with climate change and environmental protection assistance. This support promotes biodiversity and ecosystem conservation and strengthens environmental governance and management in two key biodiverse areas of Bangladesh: the Sundarbans Reserve Forest, a UNESCO World Heritage Site in the southwest, and the ecologically critical forests and wetlands in the southeast and northeast. Our assistance over the past 20 years has helped Bangladesh protect its natural resources and biodiversity by bringing together local communities and the government to co-manage more than 1 million hectares of land. As a result, Bangladesh's climate resilience has grown stronger. We welcome other opportunities to develop partnerships to implement climate change adaptation and mitigation strategies to achieve the commitments under the Paris Agreement on Climate Change for Bangladesh and the broader Bay of Bengal region. We are also partnering with the region to build resilience to pandemic disease and to strengthen its health systems. I recently traveled to Narayanganj to celebrate the milestone of the United States providing the 100 millionth vaccine to Bangladesh. This milestone underscores the strong partnership between our two countries and is just one part of the incredible progress Bangladesh has made in fully vaccinating 75% of its entire population. But our vision for an open, interconnected, prosperous, secure, and resilient Indo-Pacific is under threat. We face two broad challenges. The most pressing strategic challenge facing our vision is from authoritarian powers trying to alter the fundamental rules of the road in international affairs. For example, a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council invaded its neighbor, attempting to erase a sovereign state from the map. Russia's brutal war against Ukraine has had far-reaching consequences, many of which are being felt here in Bangladesh. We will continue to work with allies and partners to combat the strain this has placed on the global economy, on food security, and on energy markets. The solution to this crisis is simple. If Putin stops fighting, the turmoil ends. If Ukraine stops fighting, Ukraine ends. Let me also speak frankly about the PRC. Last week, President Biden made it clear to President Xi Jinping that the United States is not looking for conflict, but to manage competition responsibly. They discussed a range of issues. President Biden has asked Secretary of State Blinken to travel to the PRC to follow up on those discussions and to keep lines of communication open. The PRC is the only country with both the intent to reshape the international order and increasingly the economic, diplomatic, military, and technological power to do so. The PRC is also integral to the global economy and to our ability to solve challenges from climate to COVID-19. Simply put, the United States and China must deal with each other for the foreseeable future. Let me be direct about the competition between the United States and the PRC by quoting President Biden's address to the UN General Assembly in September. As we manage shifting geopolitical trends, the United States will conduct itself as a reasonable leader. We do not seek conflict. We do not seek a Cold War. We do not ask any nation to choose between the United States or any other partner. But the United States will be unabashed in promoting our vision of a free, open, secure, and prosperous world, and that what we have to offer the community of nations is the following: investments that are designed not to foster dependency, but to alleviate burdens and help nations become self-sufficient, and partnerships not to create political obligation, but because we know our own success, each of our success, is increased when other nations succeed as well. So U.S. diplomacy is based on partnership and respect for each other's interests. We don't expect every country to have the exact same assessment of the PRC as we do. We know that many countries, including the United States, have vital economic or people-to-people ties with the PRC that they want to preserve. Let me be clear again. This is not about forcing countries to choose. It's about giving them a choice. The second challenge to this vision is that while this competition is underway, people all over the world are struggling to cope with the effects of shared problems that cross borders, whether it's climate change, food insecurity, communicable diseases, or inflation. These shared challenges are not secondary to geopolitics. They are at the very core of national and international security and must be treated as such. By their very nature, these challenges require governments to cooperate if they are to solve them. To take on the larger challenge of food insecurity, the United States introduced a call to action, a roadmap to eliminating global food insecurity that more than 100 member states have already supported. And through USAID's Feed the Future initiative across the world and right here in Bangladesh, the United States is scaling up innovative ways to get drought and heat-resistant seeds into the hands of farmers who need them. Farmers are receiving fertilizer and improving fertilizer efficiency so that they can grow more food while using less fertilizer. The United States is also committed to meeting its global responsibility to tackle climate change by working to deliver funding to the International Climate Finance to help lower-income countries implement their climate goals and ensure a just energy transition. A key part of this effort is the President's Emergency Plan for Adaptation and Resilience, also known as the PREPARE Plan. Launched by President Biden at COP27, this whole-of-government initiative will help 500 million people, especially in vulnerable countries, adapt to the impacts of climate change and build resilience. The United States is willing to work with every nation, including our competitors, to address global, transnational problems like climate change. So, in closing, we cannot afford to ignore any of these challenges. In President Biden's address to the General Assembly, he laid out the common ground we share and his vision for cooperation with all nations. He said, to stand against global politics of fear and coercion, to defend the sovereign rights of smaller nations as equal to those of larger ones, to embrace basic principles like freedom of navigation, respect for international law, and arms control, And no matter what else we might disagree on, that is the common ground upon which we must stand. We stand today in the early years of a decisive decade. Let us work together to strengthen the foundations of peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific and around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. The USA, Japan, India, and Australia also formed the Quad, the most prominent military association in the region. Former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was a firm believer in the Quad's power to ensure a free and open Indo-Pacific, and persuaded the US of the value of this coalition approach across the Indo-Pacific. The Quad leaders released a joint statement on March 12, 2021, titled "The Spirit of the Quad," stating that they would strive for a free, open, inclusive, healthy region anchored by democratic values and unconstrained by question. To speak more about Japan's current perception of the development in South Asia, I would like to invite the Ambassador of Japan to Bangladesh, His Excellency Ito Naoki, to say a few words. Mr. Ito Naoki. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jill, for your kind introduction about Japan's policy vis-à-vis Indo-Pacific. So, distinguished guests, excellencies, I'm so pleased to speak before you, such a learned audience today. I'm particularly happy that we are sharing among 4 ambassadors and high commissioners, sharing this platform or stage together. It's really wonderful opportunity to present respective views on Indo-Pacific, but I understand that collectively or jointly we are presenting the importance of Indo-Pacific as a sort of idea, vision for the prosperity, peace, stability, development of entire region, including, of course, Bay of Bengal and this part of the world. I have been in this country just over 3 years. On March last year, I had the opportunity to attend the twin celebration of the country, Bangladesh, 50 years of independence, as well as the birth centenary of Bangabandhu. Really marvelous occasion to see the development of the nation. But against the economic development, as well as stability, the country achieved over many years. So we are able to witness the fact that the stature of Bangladesh in the region was enhanced. For the 10 days of twin celebration, Dhaka was the center of regional diplomacy. It was Bangladesh which endeavored to promote the enhancement of regional connectivity, promote free trade in the region, as well as to extend cooperation to the economic situation, sound macroeconomic management of other countries in the region. Japan would like to support such role played by Bangladesh in the region. Japan would like to extend cooperation for Bangladesh to play even larger role in the region. So, to me, what Bangladesh wanted to achieve during those twin celebrations was the very similar thing that Japan would like to promote peace, stability, and development through free, open Indo-Pacific. That is the vision Japan has been promoting, as Jiru Rahman already explained. If I may talk a bit about Japan's free, open Indo-Pacific. We have 3 pillars regarding this vision, free, open Indo-Pacific. First pillar is to share values: democracy, freedom of navigation, rule-based international order. And second pillar is to pursue economic prosperity. And the third pillar is to maintain peace and stability in the entire region of Indo-Pacific. So as I said, free open Indo-Pacific is a vision to realize peace, stability, and prosperity among all the nations in the Indo-Pacific. In order to pursue free open Indo-Pacific, Japan has been and will be providing practical cooperation. Practical cooperation in wider areas of relevance to realize this vision. So practical cooperation should include quality infrastructure, regional connectivity, disaster management, climate change mitigation and adaptation, counter terrorism, and others. We do capacity building of Coast Guard officers as well as law enforcement officers. So we provide very wide-ranging cooperation to Bangladesh with the idea of promoting practical cooperation to pursue free, open Indo-Pacific. Yes, we do this Mata Valley deep sea port development. That's a typical example of our practical cooperation under free, open Indo-Pacific. We do this Big B initiative, Bay of Bengal Industrial Growth Corridor building. And we do Dhaka Metro, we do airport terminal. All of these are part of the practical cooperation we do. And I also want to mention that Rohingya is a very important part of this FOIP. We should not allow Rohingya population to be destabilized. We will continue to cooperate with the government and international community as well as UN agencies. FOIP doesn't target any country. FOIP doesn't intend to contain any single country. FOIP is inclusive. We regard FOIP, free, open Indo-Pacific, as global commons for prosperity of the entire region. We are all guardians of the global commons. The late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe often talked about free, open Indo-Pacific as global commons for all of us in the region. And at the same time, any cooperation needs to be complying with international norm, international rules. Even development financing needs to be, abiding by international rules. Those projects need to be transparent, viable. Those projects should not be fancy, but should meet real requirement, the real needs of the country. At the same time, I really would like to underscore the fact that if any country tries to change the status quo by force or by coercion, then we raise the concern. Even when Prime Minister Kishida met with Mr. Xi Jinping back on 17th of November in Bangkok, Prime Minister shared the concern of military activities by China, Indo-China Sea, as well as those launching ballistic missile to EEZ of Japan and adjacent sea. So if there's any attempt to change status quo by force or coercion, we raise a concern. We oppose to such attempt. Next week, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is visiting Japan. This is going to be another epoch-making visit by Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. We will seek to a possible elevation of a partnership from comprehensive one to strategic one. But our hope is that the two Prime Ministers will talk about common vision of free and open Indo-Pacific. Back in 1973, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman talked about Indian Ocean region. If I may quote what he said in his interview at the Japan Press Club in Tokyo, he said, I quote, We want Southeast Asia as a peaceful region. We have declared that Indian Ocean region must be a free and peaceful region. There, Bangabandhu already talked about free and peaceful region, free and peaceful Indian Ocean. It doesn't matter how many adjectives we have, but it's very important to talk about common vision of free, open Indo-Pacific for the prosperity, stability, and peace of the entire region. We need to abide by international law. We need to abide by and respect rule-based international order. On that basis, I'm sure that our Prime Minister is going to launch a series of new initiatives for the development of Bangladesh. Japan will continue to stand by Bangladesh in its development journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ito Naoki. In a similar vein, the United Kingdom announced its comprehensive vision for its post-Brexit involvement with the world on March 16, 2021, titled Global Britain in a Competitive Age, the Integrated Review of Security, Defense, Development, and Foreign Policy. The so-called tilt toward the Indo-Pacific was one of its most notable features. In the integrated review, the Indo-Pacific is framed as a critical region where the competitive age is playing out, requiring active United Kingdom involvement to shape international order and support open societies. The UK ambitiously declared that it would be the European partner with the broadest and most integrated presence in the Indo-Pacific. To speak more on the UK's initiative in the South Asia region, I'd like to invite the High Commissioner of the United Kingdom, His Excellency Robert Chatterton-Dixon, to say a few words. Robert, microphone is yours.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you very much, Zula, for the invitation, and congratulations to the Centre for Government Studies, which I think creates a remarkable forum for candid conversations here in Dhaka, which is very welcome. And it's great that you've assembled such a distinguished audience today. I'm obviously speaking as British High Commissioner from a slightly different perspective in that the UK is not directly a regional power here in South and Southeast Asia. But we are a country which has very close historic ties to this region and very close current connections through trade, economic links, security links, and a very strong diaspora from right across the region who make a remarkable contribution to life in the UK. So we are a country that has very strong interests in this region. And in pursuing those interests, I think we very much share the visions that are put forward by our friends and colleagues in the region, and particularly those who are members of the Quad. So we support the US vision for their Indo-Pacific strategy, and we support the Japanese vision because we see these as highly compatible, not only with each other, but also highly compatible with our own interests. But as Zilla mentioned, we are increasing the degree to which we are looking to re-engage with this region. Last year, we looked at how our foreign policies should be shaped globally following our historic decision to exit from the European Union. And that brought us to the integrated review, and the integrated review brought us to what we describe as an Indo-Pacific tilt. So it's a very conscious decision to reinvest, re-engage in this part of the world. Because this region, as others have mentioned, and I strongly agree, is vital to global growth and economic dynamism. And that very much includes the Bay of Bengal, as well as the wider Indo-Pacific region. And for us, it very much reflects the extraordinary progress that Bangladesh has made over the last 50 years of its independence. We were strong supporters right at the start of Bangladeshi independence in 1971 through the diaspora, through the very strong public support represented in demonstrations in Trafalgar Square and extraordinary public support, and also in Bangabandhu's historic decision when he was released from captivity in Pakistan at the beginning of 1972 to go to London as the first place that he engaged with internationally as a free man. He met our Prime Minister, Edward Heath. He gave his first press conference in Claridge's Hotel, and he then flew back with the Royal Air Force to take up the leadership of a newly independent Bangladesh. So we've had a very strong relationship with independent Bangladesh right from the start. And now what we're seeing is a relationship that in economic terms is evolving. We've been very strong partners through development over those 50 years, but we're now increasingly seeing an economic and trade relationship which builds on broader foundations. We're Bangladesh's third largest market, mainly for ready-made garments, but increasingly for other things as well. And we are reinforcing the relationship here in Bangladesh through a range of new instruments, which include the British Investment International, formerly the Commonwealth Development Corporation, but now with a broader remit, with an increased capital commitment by UK Export Finance, and with a new tool, UK Centres of Excellence, UK Centres of Expertise, which is designed to enable our economic, environmental, social expertise to be deployed more actively into countries where these things can be put to good use in the shared journey towards growth. So we have a deeper and a more varied and a more trade-focused economic relationship, which I'm sure will prosper as Bangladesh continues to grow through these turbulent times. But I think a key point that others have already made in other ways is that for Bangladesh to continue to grow, for any country to continue to grow reliably, the rules-based international system is absolutely critical. Bangladesh, as a major exporter into world markets, depends on the rules and norms that underpin global trade. And I think it's the wider way in which rules and norms have been challenged by Russia in the brutal, unprovoked aggression against Ukraine that makes this such a turbulent time for all of us. And we all, including Bangladesh, including my colleagues on the stage with me, all have an interest in demonstrating to the world that the UN Charter, that the rules-based international system remain key to our shared prosperity. And we very much welcome Bangladesh's decision to support some of the recent UN General Assembly resolutions which aim to uphold both the territorial integrity of Ukraine but also the underlying principles of the UN Charter. And I just build slightly further on that point about rules and norms by saying that I think the key for Bangladesh to continue to grow in the next decade and beyond will be through institutional quality, the institutional quality that makes this country one in which international investors want to come here to pursue the scale and growth that Bangladesh can offer. But quality institutions are key to making investors confident that they can put their money to work here reliably. And I think a point I've made before, that a key to institutional quality in a democratic system are fair and transparent elections. So I very much hope that over the next year or two in Bangladesh, that is what we will see, because I think it is very much in the country's interest that fair and democratic elections underpin the institutional quality which will be vital to continued economic growth. But we're working together with Bangladesh in other areas as well. Climate change is obviously a problem for all of us. We've seen here in Bangladesh, we've seen in Pakistan, we've seen in the UK, the very direct evidence of the impact of the climate crisis that now confronts us all. And we are working very closely with the government. We worked very closely with the Honourable Prime Minister at COP26 in Glasgow, and we welcome the signs of progress now emerging from COP27 towards a more equitable financial deal. And in particular, we hope that will enable Bangladesh to become a better environment for investing green finance, to do the things that are necessary to build both mitigation and adaptation here in Bangladesh. So to conclude, there is a vision for Indo-Pacific and Bay of Bengal, which I think has been set out very ably by countries directly positioned in this region, but we strongly support as a country with strong interests here, but strong interests as a country that is situated elsewhere. And those interests are around an open, secure and stable region, around shared prosperity and economic growth, and around an international system based on norms and values which recognises Bangladesh's contribution, but will enable Bangladesh to continue to thrive and prosper in these turbulent times. And it's a journey that I'm very pleased and proud as British High Commissioner to be leading our inputs to here in Dhaka. So thank you very much for your attention this morning. I look forward to hearing from the audience about how they respond to the visions that we as Quad members and their friends are putting forward from the stage. Thank you very much. Onek Donabad.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you so much. Australia now finds itself in 2 powerful and interesting minilateral security arrangements in the form of the Quad and AUKUS. How does Australia perceive its current role in maintaining peace and security in the Indo-Pacific? And what is the long-term plan behind Australia's increasing assertiveness in the Pacific region? To speak more on Australia's Indo-Pacific geopolitical approach, I would like to invite the Australian High Commissioner to Bangladesh, Mr. Jeremy Brewer, to say a few words. Jeremy Brewer.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Good afternoon. And thank you very much, Zulur, for your invitation to speak this afternoon at this event. And congratulations once again on assembling such a large and distinguished group. Can I thank my predecessors for the excellent comments that they've made too, and the valuable contributions they've made to this discussion. Bay of Bengal Conversation is really an excellent opportunity for countries in the Indo-Pacific and their partners to discuss the increasing strategic importance of the Bay of Bengal within our region. It's also an opportunity for countries to discuss the importance of cooperating to address shared challenges in the region and beyond. And of course, as we've heard, there are plenty of those challenges where there's no shortage of them. Climate change, economic recovery from COVID-19, environmental and maritime security, and promoting an international rules-based order are very prominent among them. As the title of this panel events suggests, there is increasing interest in the roles of multilateral, regional and minilateral initiatives in the Indo-Pacific region. At their core, these initiatives exist to promote cooperation among states to address these shared challenges that we face. As an example, an important platform for regional cooperation is being highlighted this very week, in fact, as we speak, in Dhaka, through the ministerial and senior officials meetings of IORA, the Indian Ocean Regional Association. Australia is a proud member of IORA, and we strongly support and congratulate Bangladesh on its role as chair. We welcome also the ongoing and important roles played by, among others, the United States, the United Kingdom, and Japan as dialogue partners to IORA. And we hope that that meeting produces strong outcomes that improve the opportunities for regional cooperation. I'd like to pitch my comments today through the frame of Australia as an engaged international participant. We understand very clearly the need to work with others around the world to support our own security and economic strength and to shape our world and our region for the better. We, as a middle power, depend on international trade and we strongly support the multilateral system. We are part of the Indo-Pacific region. We have the Pacific region to our east and the Indian Ocean to our west. Forgive me, those of you who've heard me say this before, but I like to say that Australia wakes up in the morning to see the sun rising over the Pacific Ocean, and we go to bed at night watching the sun set over the Indian Ocean. The Indo-Pacific is where we live. We see the world through an Indo-Pacific lens. Everything and everyone that comes to and from Australia travels over or through the Indian and or the Pacific Oceans. So it's natural that our interests and concerns and priorities lie in our own region. That's why we support a free and open and inclusive and resilient Indo-Pacific region that is respectful of the rules and norms that serve the interests of all nations, large and small, and where all countries have a voice. We want to work with our partners, such as Bangladesh, bilaterally and through a wide variety of regional forums, including IORA, including APEC, ASEAN, the Pacific Islands Forum, and yes, groupings such as the Quad, to help ensure that the Indo-Pacific remains inclusive, remains peaceful, remains prosperous, and remains secure. And we want to promote an Indo-Pacific where sovereignty and international law are respected. We see the collection of multilateral bodies and forums in the region as being mutually complementary and supportive of our goals for the Indo-Pacific. The variety of issues that they focus on reflects the divergences the divergent challenges in the region. Their existence promotes an inclusive regional order in which all countries can have a say and take decisions and act in their own interests. From Australia's point of view, the multilateral bodies in the Indo-Pacific are a positive and much needed channel for cooperation and engagement among states. Our region, like the rest of the world, is being reshaped economically and strategically. The geopolitical context in our region has become sharper. We think it's better to navigate this period of change together, that to maintain sovereign choices, not just for us, but for all countries in the region, we need to work together, and that it's up to all of us to create the kind of region that we all aspire to. A free and open region that's inclusive and resilient, a region that's stable, prosperous and respectful of sovereignty, and a region where countries are free to make their own choices. We look forward to working with like-minded states to strengthen the multilateral system, to promote free, open, inclusive and resilient region, and to establish a prosperous life for our people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, distinguished guests. May I ask you all to take a picture together, please, on the stage. Thank you very much.
Dear guests, we will now hold our next session titled Forest for the Trees, the Unsung Role of Nature Conservation in Climate Adaptation and Mitigation. I would like to invite onto the stage Justin Green, International Programs, U.S. Forest Services, Edward L. Vargo, Professor and Endowed Chair, Urban and Structural Entomology, Texas A&M University, and Dr. Monjur Ahmed Chaudhry, Chairman, National River Conservation Commission, and Chairman of Center for Governance Studies. The moderator for the session is Dr. Monjur Ahmed Chaudhry. He may start when he is ready.
Good afternoon. I am Dr. Monjur Chaudhry, and on my right is Dr. Justin Green, and on my left is Professor Edward L. Vargo. We are going to start the session on Forest for the Trees, the unsung role of nature conservation in climate adaptation and mitigation. And we know that the role of trees, role of forest is very crucial for nature conservation and also for climate issues. And at first, we'll see a presentation, and Mr. Justin Green will present a slide presentation, and then after then we will take questions from the audience and discuss as we go. Okay, please.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Justin Green. I'm a program manager with U.S. Forest Service, Asia Pacific team, and I'm our South Asia team lead, and I'm really happy to be here with you today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the U.S. Forest Service and the capacities that we have internationally and domestically, and some of the inclusive models to land management that we're using in South Asia. Can you see the slide show, by the way? Yeah? Okay, here we are. Thank you. Well, U.S. Forest Service is a land management agency under the U.S. Department of Agriculture that manages 78 million hectares or 193 million acres of the U.S.'s deserts, grasslands, forests, recreation areas, and water systems. And we use this, we do this land management using a multiple use land management approach, which means that we maintain healthy terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems while also considering the production of resources, of economic goods, and use to people in the United States. So it's not solely conservation, but also looks at things like recreation, timber production, mineral extraction, clean water, etc. And the motto of the Forest Service is caring for the land and serving people. And this phrase really embodies the balance and the importance of finding balance between the environmental, social, and economic aspects of land management. The Office of International Programs is administratively situated underneath the Office of the Chief and has a wide variety of technical, programmatic, and operational areas of expertise. And in this capacity, it allows IP to serve as a liaison between the domestic Forest Service and our partners abroad in order to engage in international technical cooperation programs. Within our activities, we try to maintain an ethic of diversity, equity, inclusion in our management programs. And this is very important, not only for general social justice, but also for the success of land management activities. We found that you can't really manage land unless you engage people at all levels, socially and at all different scales and systems levels within a society. So it's very important to work with all people, and we try to bring this to all of our activities internationally and domestically. We're currently working in over 90 countries internationally, and the reason why we engage in these international global technical cooperations because today's forestry programs require a global approach. Ecosystems don't adhere to national boundaries, And it requires us all kind of collaborating to learn from each other, to overall increase the awareness and understanding and effectiveness of land management programs globally. Within this, within our programs internationally, we partner with a lot of U.S. government agencies, and we work government to government with foreign governments, with international organizations, research institutions, and community groups, civil society organizations, and throughout the social spectrum to try to get the widest range of partners to ensure the success of our programs. So why do forests matter in the first place? And one of the main reasons is forest destruction. Forest degradation accounts for over a quarter of greenhouse gas emissions in the world. So maintaining healthy forests, maintaining healthy ecosystems is, in effect, sequestering more carbon and decreasing the amount of carbon emissions. Soil is said to be able to sequester up to 4 times that of the terrestrial plant and animal ecosystems that we know of. And blue carbon, which is very much an emerging area of interest, has been said to be able to sequester even more than terrestrial carbon. So natural resource management, forestry, and land management overall is a direct source of carbon sequestration, and to maintain healthy ecosystems decreases carbon emissions globally. And when you look at adaptation strategies, overall, with natural resource management, what they really come down to at the end of the day is controlling the direction of succession. Whether you're planting trees to increase carbon sequestration and forest cover, or whether you're engaging in controlled burns to reduce carbon sequestration or to reduce the threat of forest fire, controlling the direction of succession is really the goal of all forest-based adaptation plans. And in order to do this, it's really important to have strong, reliable data that not only looks at the needs of today, but projects in a changing climate. What would make sense in 20 years? What is this ecosystem going to look like as climate changes and as the ecosystem adapts in order to manage forward for future conditions? And doing this requires a wide range of thematic areas and partners, again, bringing in multiple actors from different systems levels within a society, within a land management agency, and within a overall land management approach, including the biophysical, which is your direct land management data, your ecological data, your social factors can't be more important, because it's really the society and the communities that are going to maintain this land management approach in the future. After programs end, you still need actors and stakeholders to carry forward the goals and the activities of the program, and the economic drivers to fund work, to have it be economically viable and have there be an economic incentive to those actors, as well as that long-term management and leadership approach from government levels and institutional levels. Some of the programs that Forest Service works with internationally focus directly on climate change. Just a few here. The Civil Carbon Program works directly to improve the collection and data and analysis of national forest inventory, forest carbon, and carbon sequestration for UNF, CCC reporting, and REDD Plus reporting. SWAMP, the Sustainable Wetlands Adaptation and Mitigation Program, is a program that really looks at blue carbon. It looks at wetlands, mangroves, and other coastal ecosystems to learn more and to improve the knowledge base within universities and institutions of how to manage coastal ecosystems. And throughout South Asia, Forest Service works in multiple countries that relate to the Bay of Bengal. In Sri Lanka, India, Nepal, Bhutan, and Bangladesh, we manage disaster management programs that work at a government-to-government level to improve the national capacity on incident command system or incident management system that helps to coordinate responders on scene at any disaster response. These programs are funded by USAID, Bureau of Humanitarian Assistance, and look to kind of institutionalize this ICS response system. We also have law enforcement programs that are active throughout Asia Pacific and the globe. And in Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka, the programs focus more on ranger training and institutional capacity for enforcement of combating wildlife trafficking, environmental law enforcement. And in India, we're working on a wood identification screening program that should helpfully improve the understanding of the source and the origin of different wood species. All of these are important to undercut the black market sale of wildlife products and illegal logging materials. Specifically in Bangladesh, I want to focus on one of our programs here called Community Partnerships to Strengthen Sustainable Development, or COMPASS. This is a USAID-funded program and an interagency agreement between USAID and U.S. Forest Service. It's a 5-year program that really focuses on improving the institutional capacity to sequester carbon, to increase forest cover, increase tree cover, improve data accuracy and transparency within the nation. And it works with multiple different stakeholders in order to do this. The first component that we have is the Youth Conservation Corps program that's based on the Forest Service and the United States' Job Corps program, which is designed to take students from disadvantaged backgrounds and really teach them the soft skills on leadership and interpersonal communication to improve employability. And our Youth Conservation Corps Bangladesh program is really the first of its kind. The ultimate goal is to improve employability and increase workforce readiness amongst the youth. And we have 40 students that come through on 5-month residential training programs. It's men and women, and we really try to address those needs of improving employability skills, going through vocational trainings and on-the-job learning, while also teaching soft skills like leadership, interpersonal communication, punctuality, all those things that really help us to maintain our career long-term. And some of the activities that we draw from are everything from agriculture to first aid. We work directly with communities, community assessment, and the goal is to really help to create environmental stewards and youth that want to take action at a community level to make a difference in their nation. We're also working on a forest landscape restoration activity in Chittagong Hill Tracts. And this is, again, one of the first of its kind. We conducted a year-long robust assessment where we look at everything from the biophysical to the social aspects of forest landscape restoration. And this is really a combination between scientific skills and traditional knowledge and a blending of these. We're starting on a 1,000-hectare pilot, but it can be scaled up to over 48,000 hectares, which was the original range of our assessment. And this is looking at bringing in assisted natural regeneration, forest reforestation using local species, intermixing with agricultural plots, alternative income generating activities, working with the community, democracy and governance, working with women's groups, with youth, engaging the local governance structures within the region, and working with a lot of local experts and organizations like Arnak Foundation, Tajing Dong, Chittagong University, and many other technical experts, as well as the Bangladesh Forest Department. And we have an ongoing collaboration with the Bangladesh Forest Department. These are technical cooperations that focus on remote sensing, satellite imagery support, supporting the National Forest Inventory, GIS and GPS applications, forest mapping skills, and these are direct technical cooperation programs with the Bangladesh Forest Department, which have been a long-term partner of Forest Service since prior to 2009. We're also really stepping into urban forestry. We're working with a program called iTree, which is a Forest Service developed tool that helps to map and quantify and evaluate the value of urban trees in an urban setting. And it does this looking at pollution data, precipitation data, stormwater runoff, the cooling effect. And we work with students, with volunteers, NGOs, the Bangladesh Forest Department, local government, to have the most buy-in and the most capacity building to where iTree can actually be used to create a political imperative for decision-making and informed policy. We also work with a number of academic institutions, including Chittagong University, Khulna University, SUST, and many others from Bangladesh Forestry Research Institute. And our attempt is to try to work with institutions to train the next crop of foresters. So by the time they enter the professional workforce, they've already had all the skills that are needed in Bangladesh for modern forestry and natural resource management. And within all of these, we engage in an international cooperation, regional exchange program throughout South Asia and with the United States to try to develop a lot of cross-cultural, cross-boundary collaboration between research institutions, researchers, universities. We have an ongoing collaboration with the University of New Hampshire. We work with ISIMOD and the Forest Service on these programs. And all of these various components of Compass, they interlink not only the participants, but also the institutions and the technical expertise. It's a blending of all of the results as well to have the most coherent, cohesive, and inclusive management model that we can. Here are some climate change resources if anybody would be interested, and the organizers will have this presentation later, so you can always use those links. And really just want to thank you for your time, and with that, I'll close it out and look forward to hearing from the rest of the panel. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Justin Green. Now, I will take questions from the audience about this presentation. Before you ask the question, just introduce yourself very briefly. Yes, please. Oh, okay. All right, let me take that question fast. Oh. Okay, please bring the microphone here fast. I didn't notice. I was just okay.
Okay, she's fast. Okay.
Huh?
Okay.
She's fast. Okay. Bring the microphone here. Armani. I didn't write. That's okay. All right.
It's unfortunate that this is the second panel where there has been no female participation. I just want to point out that we are half the world. We give birth to the entire world, so I think our opinions matter. To the point, thank you. It's just ridiculous, 2022, we have manels one after another. But I was really interested in your presentation, Mr. Green or Dr. Green. So the Rohingya, the large population of Rohingyas in Cox's Bazar has resulted in just massive devastation. You have wildlife that used to have forested homes, of course, interacting where they hadn't been previously. Are you guys doing anything in Cox's Bazar to try to help restore this environmental devastation?
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. And it's, I'm sorry? Well, thank you very much for your question. Yes, our Youth Conservation Corps program is actually based in Cox's Bazar. One of the reasons for that was the devastating effect on the host communities, and the youth who definitely have a bigger issue as they look forward in their futures with the land degradation. A lot of the traditional income generating activities, agriculture activities have kind of been interfered with. So we hope that in that program we can find some alternative income generating activities for youth, that they can find employment. We often, that demographic are youth that have not completed secondary school, and the professional directions that we look at are often entrepreneurial. It's sometimes informal employment, things that they can do on their own, that they can find a business for. And there's a lot of USAID funded programs that are working within the Cox's Bazar region. Some of our work is focused on Chittagong Hill Tracts. We do, through our Youth Conservation Corps programs, work on some community assessments, working on forest landscape restoration or just general community support around the area. We don't have specific programs that are doing reforestation in Cox's Bazar, though. But a lot of our programs, we hope, as we're based nationwide, our youth that are coming out of the program will engage in their communities, become environmental stewards, and hopefully with the alternative income generating activity support can find a livelihood for themselves as they move forward. Yeah, but it's a major issue. I mean, the answers, I think, will just take decades to really come about. Thank you for your question. I couldn't agree more, and I don't think any of us planned on this. It's just that. Thank you very much for noting that, though.
Okay. We'll take that question first. Then
yes,
yes,
please.
Yes.
I am Dr. Mohan Kumar Das.
First, introduce yourself.
Yes,
first.
I am Dr. Mohan Kumar Das. I am the Executive Director of National Oceanographic and Maritime Institute, that is called NOAMI. So actually one of my questions already covered by the madam. She actually nicely focused the area, Rohingya area. Actually I am from Cox's Bazar. And another is the San Martin Island, and that is also important because of the huge tourist intervention. But my question is related to the mangrove forest, because all of you know that during the tropical cyclone, mangrove forest gives us a very huge protection, and lost coastal people get the protection because of that. But due to human intervention, that region is very much vulnerable. So what is the present status? But have you done any kind of study on that? But do you have any plan on that? And I have seen all of your study, what you already focused in many areas of the country, really very, very good. So I think lots of data you already been archived. So if some researcher needs those data in future for their anticipated action related study or any other kinds of loss and damage study, is it freely available for others? That's my submission to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Yes, mangroves are a huge storm surge protection ecosystem, very important. And one of the areas we're working on in our Compass program is on ecosystem valuation of different ecosystems within Bangladesh. We have some of our staff here that are working on it. Dr. Jinia in the back is she's leading up the process. And one of the ecosystems that we look at is mangroves and the support that it can have to buffer storms. The idea is that if we can show that help to develop a methodology that can be accepted at the national level to evaluate and evaluate ecosystem services, that the ministry will be able to vie for more funds for protection and for reforestation. So that's one area that we're looking at. Your second question was about data availability, and that ecosystem services valuation database has actually been put on the Bangladesh Forest Department's website, and I believe the idea is that it will be readily available and usable. It'll be user-friendly and easy for folks to use data on that. For iTree as well, that's open source data. And we do hope to have that data available. The National Forest Inventory is in the hands of Bangladesh Forest Department, so as they release that data, then it can be used at academic and public, by the public. So data transparency is very important, and we hope everything that we do will move towards that. Thank you.
Thank you. We are running short of time. We are actually 5 minutes over the... so I will take just one question. Please introduce yourself and ask
Thank
the
you very
question
much.
briefly.
Okay, I'm Professor Kamrul Hassan. I teach environmental ethics at Jahangirnagar University. My question is related to ethical issue. Basically, axiological model for environmental policy afford the issue of value, right? So we have a humanistic sequence that start from value market price to human welfare, collective value. The other dimension is organismic value and environmental value. So my question is, how do you address this issue of value when you run your forestry program or something like that? I mean, value in the sense, just I want to add one more point to this. Sustainable development normally involves 3 pillars, we all know: economic, social, and environmental. But the question is, a sustainable development could be still unethical, although sustainable. You know that you can undermine a group, a species of animal when you can satisfy need of fish, for example, tuna fish, right? So you can sustainably cultivate or continue working on this project, but tuna fish is causing damage to other species, right? So there is an issue of animal rights.
Would you
although
please make it short, because we are running out of time.
Although this is sustainable in a very ordinary sense of United Nations, but still it is undermining the value of a particular species. I mean, another species of fish, right? So how do you address this? What is your take on this? Thank you.
I mean, it's a kind of difficult question theoretically. I think we work more on capacity building, training with individuals. If we were doing a actual field-based intervention, then we would do a full-scale environmental assessment ahead of time and work with the local experts. So it's not Forest Service coming in and implementing. We're working with local experts. We're working with communities and trying to design a program to fit all the needs of the individuals at hand. And so it's really just a matter of being cognizant, and, you know, as a land management agency, we definitely understand the importance of environmental assessments and protecting all species, not just our main goal, but looking at, you know, what happens down the chain. Thank you.
We are running out of time. We'll just get a few comments from Dr. Bargo, and then we'll close this session.
Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me to participate, and thank you, Justin, for that nice presentation. I'm an ecologist, and I think all of us here understand the value of forests. So we're talking about forestry. Forest health is critical to our future as humans. And Justin outlined many of the reasons why forests are important, because they sequester carbon, a lot of carbon. They provide a source of fresh water. They're a great source of biodiversity. They provide economic opportunity for many people that use them. But there's some other reasons why forests are important that a lot of us don't really think about that much. One relates to invasive species. Invasive species is a huge problem, and invasive species are really a problem in disturbed areas, areas that have been degraded. They generally aren't a big problem in healthy forests because those ecosystems are very resilient. So That's another reason. And the other is zoonotic diseases. A lot of diseases that we have as humans come from animals. And a lot of those interactions between humans and animals come at the boundary of degraded forests or degraded areas and forest habitats where those animals occur. So there are a lot of reasons why the health of forests is important to our future, and I think for all of us we need to recognize the importance of them in terms of invasive species and zoonotic diseases as well as the other traditional areas that we think about. Thank you.
This was a brief but very informative and insightful discussion, and we would have continued for a few minutes, but we don't have time. So I thank you all, Dr. Green, Dr. Bargo, for their comments and presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you. Our next session will be an in conversation between two esteemed gentlemen. I would like to welcome onto the stage for the second time Mr. Boris Tadic, former president of Serbia, and Ali Aslan, international TV presenter, moderator, and journalist.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome indeed. My name is Ali Aslan. As previously mentioned, I'm an international TV presenter and journalist based in Berlin, Germany, and it's a delight to be here in Bangladesh for the very first time. Thank you to the CGS and Zilur Rahman for their kind invitation. And within the next 30 minutes, I now have the great pleasure of having a conversation with the former president of Serbia, who's already made the inaugural speech here today, but certainly former president, lots to talk about. You were president, and I'm hoping that my voice is strong enough to be picked up by the microphone. You were president from 2004 to 2012 for full 8 years. Looking back and looking at the times that we live in, those seem to be easier times in many aspects.
Yeah, it's looking much easier, but that was specifically very...
I think...
That is looking right now much easier, but in Serbia that was specifically extremely difficult because I started my term only 5 years after my country was bombed. And only 1 year after assassination of the first democratically elected Prime Minister of Serbia, previous president of my party, Zoran Đinđić. In that context, that was extremely difficult and dangerous, but now the whole world is living in this atmosphere.
Yeah, indeed. If we're looking around, obviously the war in Ukraine, against the Ukraine, is certainly occupying most of our time, thoughts, and energy back in Europe, but it has global implications, of course. At the end of the day, how's Europe, in your opinion, faring during times like these? Obviously, the United States is still a major player here, China yielding a great deal of influence over Moscow, but let's talk about Europe here for a second and about Europe's role. Judging by what has happened since February 24th, is Europe as unified as it claims to be on the forefront?
I mean, Europe is looking very unified, in terms of defending Ukraine right now. But what I feel, which is not something which is crystal clear and obvious, that is a kind of tension existing between United States and some of European Union countries. Okay, Europe and United States are right now unified in terms of defending Ukraine regarding aggression of Russia against Ukraine. But at the same time, this is a dispute within the Western countries about energy, political issues, and also some other issues which are very important for the future of European Union and relations between United States and some major European Union countries like Germany, Italy, France. This is what I think.
If you're sitting in Bangladesh or in South Asia for that matter, and you're saying, look, this is a war very, very far from us. We have our own set of issues. This doesn't really concern us in any shape or form. What would you tell this audience here about the challenges, about the war taking place in Ukraine right now and how it might affect this region in the long run?
There is no war in the world nowadays which is very far from every single country. I mean, not only because of the leaders of the countries that are involved in a war in Ukraine are mentioning nuclear power, tactical nuclear power, not strategic nuclear power. But that means that every war in this context is very close to every country in the world nowadays, even Bangladesh. This is why we have to be concerned about outcome of this war. And in fact, I'm reading kind of articles, and Foreign Affairs was launching one article interesting with the title "Beginning of History," not the end of the history, beginning of history, and this is exactly beginning of the new era of the history, and whoever was thinking and dreaming that is going to be the end of the history, right now is waking up in a new atmosphere and in the new facts that are going to create huge impact on global arena in next few years. After this war, we are not going to live in the same world.
Yeah, and God forbid, obviously, with the implications and the threat of a nuclear attack on the part of Moscow, that is obviously something that the entire globe has to be concerned about. But moving on from the war in Ukraine, generally speaking, these seem to be difficult times in the sense, yes, we have war, yes, the nuclear threat is back on the agenda, but climate change is very much an issue. We saw it during the discussion in Sharm el-Sheikh that are occupying our minds, our thoughts, and frankly, our future. Leadership here is very much needed and wanted these days. You were a leader for 8 years. You've met many of them throughout the years. If you're looking at the spectrum right now, do you see a lack of global leadership?
Yes, I see lack of global leadership, but not only among the politicians and political circles, but also among the political intellectuals. This is problem. I mean, the politicians are not alone in this world, and they are very much depend also about general aspect of politics. And in that respect, the political intellectuals, university, faculty, and the people, journalists, the people that are able to think about future and to predict future and also to create kind of vision are extremely important right now, and I see lack of leadership in all those aspects and the fields of the mankind. This is, I think, we are living in a very dangerous situation, which is for intellectuals very interesting. I mean, you have a war in Ukraine, we had a war in Syria, problem with the refugees, migrants, climate changes. Bangladesh is facing with the migrants, that the outcome of climate changes. I mean, you ask me about Bangladesh and how people living in Bangladesh has to consider war in Ukraine. Is it so far from them? But in Europe, not many people are thinking about climate changes and the outcome of that you have to be refugee from that impact on your life. And in general, in general, nowadays, we don't show enough empathy for the people that are living on different continents in different countries that are facing with the significant challenges. But those challenges are going to come to our countries in our life after tomorrow, very soon. And this is problem. We are living in a smaller. We have a bigger population, but we are living in the smaller world. This is controversial situation we are facing with. We have 8 billion people, but we are living in the smaller world in terms of communication, in terms of climate changing, the impact of the weather on our life, impact of the new technologies on our life, impact of the war and the communication between leaders on our life. And this is kind of speeding up of history. This is kind of speeding up of history, and everything what happened within a few decades in the past is going to be reality within few years in the future.
We have more access to information than ever, but we're thinking more locally than ever, is what I'm understanding you. But at the end of the day, the words you're saying, coming from somebody who's been at the forefront, saying, yes, you do observe, you see a lack of global leadership, not just on the political level, but all throughout. There are many young people here in the audience as well. What message, as somebody who's been there, would you share and convey to the younger generation, who at the end of the day has to pick up the baton?
Yes, exactly. Things are coming very fast in our lives, in the political, not only events, but the processes. And okay, I'm reminding myself, I'm right now 65 years old, and only a few years before, I consider myself as a young man. But
you still are. You still are.
But I'm not that. I'm not anymore a young man. I'm 65 years old. I mean, when I'm coming on the airport and somewhere I see the generations that are older than 65 years, I'm coming to that generation. But nowadays we have to think about new generations that are going to take over responsibility for the world. And in every country we have to think about young generation right now. And but at the same time we have countries where the people are running countries more than a few decades. I was watching one article in which they mentioned that the longest leader in the world, which is running his own country, Equatorial Guinea, more than 43 years. More than 43 years to be on the power. This is really bizarre situation. I mean, that is changing your mind. You are considering yourself as a kind of God on the earth, and this is not normal situation. But what about these countries, like Equatorial Guinea, the countries in which there are not changes, political changes, but at the same time, we need a new generation of politicians, new generation of political intellectuals, but also without experience. We are going to be in a very dangerous situation. In that respect, I think that combination between young people and experienced people is the only solution for the challenges we are facing nowadays. We are talking about different challenges, climate changes, we are talking about new type of wars, new type of conflicts, the dialogue between civilizations, interreligious dialogue. Look how many challenges we are facing with. I mean, the old problems and the disputes, new problems and the disputes, how to predict new problems and the new disputes. And we need a kind of totally new political expertise right now. Not to have a scientist on the power, but to have a people that are aware about science, about history, and to be oriented to the practical solutions also, able to deliver practical solutions in accordance with sustainable vision. This is what I think about politics. But this is why politics is not existing without philosophy, without journalists, without thinkers, think tanks. Politics is in new era has to be something very, very different. But maybe the reality we are facing with in many different countries is is not taking into consideration my approach to the politics right now. We have a more populism right now than before, and we don't have a democracy like it was in the past, few decades ago. We have a boost of populism right now. The populists are becoming more and more powerful in the global arena, not only in countries that are traditionally populistic countries, but also in the old democracies, you know. Look, United States, Russia, European Union. European Union is full by populists right now. And no one is able to make lessons to the others, to start from the podium of arrogancy to teach someone. Everyone has to consider himself and to think seriously about what we did, what we have to do in the future.
It's very profound words and observations coming from you, basically appealing for a completely new way of thinking, new way of doing politics. And in fact, many are out there saying, look, we've reached limits in so many ways, not just with climate change. We're seeing with the economic system, in essence, going bust, heightened living costs all around the world, inflation, and so on and so forth. A lot of people, in fact, are pleading, or some intellectuals are saying, the era of perpetual growth is over. The thinking that we're constantly gonna live bigger and better than our predecessors is over. Is that something that you would agree with? Do we completely have to rethink the global system, not just political, but economic and societal system?
I fully agree with you, with what you have said. I think that we have to rethink about what we did in past 1 year, not in past 10 years. Every time, every new year, we have to rethink about what we delivered and how we were doing things in the past 12 months, because the time is speeding every day, and the speeding up. And this is the specific situation we are facing with. Every leader of the company, not of the state only. Every company, every small company has to rethink about his mistake, his failure, and to navigate in a different way, to accommodate the company, his kind of leadership, managing of the situation in accordance with the new reality. But as you said, I fully agree with you, with your words, your thoughts, and we reached the limit. There is no possibility anymore to have economic growth by implementing the rules and the measures that has been functioning properly only 10 years ago. We have a new era in all aspects, but we have also limits in new technologies. I mean, whoever is thinking that technologies are taking over power in the future is a failing. Also, people that are counting on technologies to be main power in the world in the future are failing right now, because human beings are also limited. I mean, sometimes even scientists are not taking the accordance the fact that human beings are also limited. I mean, and this is a foundation from which we have to start the future in the future of the mankind.
Bringing back the discussion to the location that we're in Dhaka, Bangladesh, it is true, isn't it, that we in the West and Europe in particular, we don't know much about this part of the region. There seems to be a lack of perhaps political interest, perhaps of lack of curiosity. You were here as president, you were here now. How can we shift the thinking? How can we shift the insular thinking? Because you, I think, correctly said that even though we have more information than ever, politicians and human beings in general are tending to think increasingly local and within their bubbles. But this is a very, very crucial region, isn't it? Especially for Europe. How do you think we can instigate that thinking in Europe?
As I said in my inauguration speech today, we are in the region which has more than 2 billion people living together in Bengal Bay. 2 billion people. And the European Union is 500 million people.
And shrinking.
Yeah, and shrinking. And the European leaders are thinking this is center of the world. But here we are living 2 billion people. And 2 billion people, as I said in my speech, every country, every group has 5% of the people that are extremely talented, intellectually, in terms of skills and the capacity to deliver. 5%. 500 million people, 5%. And 2 billion people, 5%. You know, this is about future. This is about who is going to be more competitive in the future. But this is about you. Are you going to manage this situation in a proper way? It's not about us living in the European Union, in Europe, sorry. My country is not member state of European Union. But we have to change, to make paramount shift in our philosophy. This is like Niccolo Copernic. I mean, we have to rethink about where is going to be driving force of the world in the future. And in that respect, we have to have a better communication. What I'm learning from my experience, my political experience, the people that are representing different countries and regions cannot understand each other. I mean, I'm very often, I'm sitting in the boards of different think tanks. I'm talking with the different people. This is the beauty of my life. I mean, I'm traveling almost every day. I'm not in Serbia more than 1/3 of my time, 1/4 of my time, but I'm meeting different people. And I see that politicians and even intellectuals cannot understand each other, even though we are speaking maybe English, French, Mandarin, and Bengali language. But the problem of understanding is even bigger nowadays than before, because we are living in the smaller world, but we have a lack of understanding. And we have to translate what we think, what we want, what we are going to do. And that our behavior in the Chinese culture, Mandarin culture, and the German culture, even though it's looking very similar, is not the same. We are pointing out signals that are looking very similar, but that are in fact very different. Very different. In that respect, I see in the politics the problem of lack of understanding, and we have to think about that in the future. We are living in the smaller world in terms of communication, but this is problem of understanding. I mean, we are more frequently communicating, but we have to explain to each other what we really want, what we think. I'm saying this because every human being is characterized by specific things, but also the worst habits and the worst characteristic of our mankind, stereotypes, prejudices, and something like that. And this is creating huge impact on our behavior, individual, but also on the state behavior. On the state behavior. I remember the treatment of my country in the 1990s because of involvement in the war. It was horrible. And I had to explain to some auditoriums and some intellectuals that, okay, I'm coming from the Serbia, which was involved in the war in the 1990s, but I'm not the wild person. I'm a normal person like everyone, and I'm in favor of peace, not in favor of war.
Well, it's very clear that even though you may have been out of office for a while, these are issues that are still preoccupying your mind, and it's good that you are able to share and convey your political experience now, pass it on, whether it's within a think tank, a Club de Madrid, or the younger generation on stages like this. We only have a few seconds left, so before I let you go and before we all break for lunch, let me touch very briefly on a subject matter that is going to preoccupy our minds, certainly within the next 4 weeks, which is the World Cup. I know that Serbia, as a football fanatic country, is, as a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think the captain of the Serbian national team is a cousin of yours.
It's my relative, yes.
Is a relative of yours. So who's going to win it? I know that in Bangladesh, if you're in Dhaka, if you drive around, it was fascinating to see. You have, this country is divided between Argentina and Brazil fans. You see all across the flags. What is your prediction?
We in Serbia, we are facing with one very specific problem, We are 7 million people country, small country. Altogether, Serbs are approximately 10 million living in the world. But because of fantastic sports successes, we consider ourselves as the great champion of the world. And we all, our self-perception is that we are one of the biggest country in the world. And
you have the best tennis player, that's for sure.
Tennis, basketball, volleyball, water polo, and all kind of sports. But in that respect, I think many Serbs are thinking we are going to win on this championship. And we are playing against Brazil in the preliminary group. And be sure that majority of Serbs are thinking we are going to defeat Brazil. But when I used to be president of Serbia, that was in South Africa World Cup. And I had a meeting with Angela Merkel in that time, with which I had many disputes during our terms. And I'm finishing with that. She asked me, what about World Cup and our match, Germany-Serbia? I said, we are going to defeat you. And we did it. We did it. Maybe we are going to defeat Brazil. I hope, and we are not giving up. This is about Serbia.
Certainly we will see how that goes. It's been a pleasure getting your views on the very current topics that are on the agenda, that are in the headlines. Certainly keep bringing your experience into the conversation as you've done throughout the past 30 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, the former Serbian president, Boris Tadic, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Holly.
I think they want us for a photo.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will have 3 parallel sessions over lunch. Only those who are invited to the parallel sessions are requested to go to the relevant venue, which you can find outside in the main lobby. You have to go upstairs. For everyone else, lunch is prepared on the second ballroom, which is right behind this ballroom. I repeat, only those who are invited to the parallel sessions, conversations over lunch, will go to the relevant venues. The venues are Shurma, Meghna, and Chitra. You can find the venues outside. You have to go up the stairs.